Alright, well, good evening, everybody. We're back with another... something in my hair. Anyway, probably from when I just caught a chicken to the face a second ago. Oh, a few minutes ago. Anyway, that's for another time. We're back with another homesteading how-to. Today, we are going to be making bread and butter pickles. So we'll go over everything we need for that, and we'll get started. Alright, so the things we need to make bread and butter pickles are pretty simple. We need, obviously, a bunch of cucumbers. Now, I'm gonna go say something here real quick. I'm buying these from Walmart. And here's the thing. Getting good quality product is all that matters. Doesn't matter if you grow it or buy it. When you're trying to make something, you get the best you can get, and you work with what you've got. Because here's the deal, that's what homesteading's all about anyways, working with what you have available. And what I've got available to me right now is these cucumbers from Walmart, which are the size that I want, the varieties that I want. They're actually really good cucumbers, they make pretty good pickles. So, there we are. You need a bowl to hold all of the pickles in. You don't need, but it sure is useful, a mandolin slicer. Okay? Because then I'll show you here in a minute, but if you're not familiar with them, makes slicing your cucumbers and such much easier. If you have a mandolin, and you have available to you a cut-resistant glove for your cutting hand, very useful to avoid accidental injuries. I like to put one of those specifically, nitrile, so it's not latex, but it's a latex-free alternative glove over top of the cut-resistant glove, so that way I don't get cucumber juice and stuff all over the glove, and it's annoying, basically. Okay, and of course you're going to need vinegar. I use distilled white vinegar for my bread and butter pickles. I've seen some people use apple cider vinegar. They'll both produce a good pickle. It just really depends on what you want flavor-wise. And then over here, of course, got my big container of sugar. Because bread and butter pickles are a sweet pickle. So you want to make a sweet pickle, you're going to need something to sweeten it. And you could, I think theoretically, make a bread and butter pickle with some other form of sweetener. But depending on what you're using, it's going to really change the flavor, so I would almost, at that point, not call it a bread and butter pickle. I'd call it something else. But here's the hand that'll be handling the cucumbers as shown, or as mentioned. So then, cucumbers are already washed. Now, my mandolin is adjustable for thickness. I like to have it about 5 or 6. See if you can see that very well. I don't know if you can. Not really. I like to have it set at about 5 or 6 millimeters of thickness. So you get a moderately thick slice. You can do them thinner or thicker as you want. I also never cut the blossom end off. I just slice them with the rest of the cucumber to make another pickle slice. And so this is why I say if you want to use a mandolin, having a cut-resistant glove is good, because if you're not paying attention, this thing can take off fingertips pretty easily. So this will help protect your hand from that eventuality if you're not paying attention while you're slicing, which happens sometimes. I've nearly cut fingertips off with a mandolin on more than one occasion. But then, here, just to show you, so that's the thickness that I like to start with for my cucumbers when I'm making pickle slices. So we're going to go ahead and slice all these cucumbers. Then we'll move on to the next stage. So, interrupting our time-lapse footage here because, there we go. You might have seen me jerk right at the end of it there. That's why. I ran my thumb right into the mandolin blade. And if not for that glove, I probably would have ruined all those cucumbers with blood. And I might be needing to go get a couple stitches in the end of my thumb right now. So, yeah, cut-resistant glove using mandolin slicer. Strongly recommended. Okay, well here we are, last 2 cucumbers. Tilting the mandolin up this time. I'm starting to run out of room in this bowl. So cutting the brief pause there, where I was showing you guys the near miss because of the cut glove. 10 pounds of cucumbers. Took about 10 minutes. So, there we go. That is why a mandolin is such a useful thing for this. Now what we're going to do, we're going to get jars laid out, because then these are going to start going into jars like so. Alright, so we'll be back 1 second. Alright, so here we go. 24 jars laid out. I don't know exactly how many we're going to need. As always, I've got potentially more than I'm going to need. Because, well, I hate going to get extra jars. So, as with most things when you're canning at home, you don't want to fill the jars full. Like full. In fact, these I want to do just slightly less because we got. There we go. One of the things to make bread and butter pickles is they a little sliced onion in them as well. We're just gonna put that right on top after we get the cucumbers in. And so you can kind of see, I'm filling them. 3/4 away or so, and then you kind of push them down a little bit because you want them to actually kind of pack in so that the pressure they're kind of exerting on each other in the jar keeps them from floating up. You want your pickles to stay submerged in your pickle brine when you get it in there. So whether it's this, whether it's cucumbers, and whether those cucumbers are slices or spears or whole, you kind of want to jam them in as best you can. You don't want to smash them and break them. But you do want to get them packed in fairly tight. So like I said, they'll stay submerged better. One of the other things you can do, which is kind of what I'm doing right now, is just going to go through and kind of loosely fill a lot of these until I'm most of the way done with my cucumbers. And they're going to be overfilled because they're still going to get packed down. And I say mostly done with my cucumbers because you're going to want a few extras there for jars that are not full enough after the packing. So we'll do quite a few more jars, but we'll wait until we've got about a quarter of our cucumbers left. And then we'll stop, go back through, pack everything in real good, and then come back around and fill back up as needed. A quarter of our pickles, or a quarter of our cucumbers might actually be all these jars. 24 jars looks like it's going to be awful close. Which sounds about right, because I did some dill pickles about a week ago or so now. I had the same amount of cucumbers and got about this many jars. So, alright, we'll stop right there for the moment and go back through and pack everything. I mean, we still, as you can see, we still have a fair number of cucumbers left. But, like I said, we want to make sure we've got all of our jars filled properly. So that might mean coming back through and adding some more to some of these jars, like this one, for example, and the one right next to it. There we go. I think maybe this one too. And a couple. So yeah, this is, now, a lot of recipes that you'll find for pickles usually call for you to cook your cucumbers in your brine before you pack them into your jars. I have found that to be a mostly unnecessary step. I think it is recommended. It's kind of one of those abundance of caution type steps. And while I can appreciate wanting to make sure that the product you are making and serving, potentially to your family in many cases, is safe and you're not going to make them sick or worse. Like, I get that and I appreciate that, but there's exercising intelligent caution and then there's being paranoid. And I think a lot of that falls into the latter. I think it's paranoia because one person got sick once when they said they did all of these things, even though they probably really didn't, because they probably lied to make themselves look better. And so then that's grown into, oh well, you have to do all of this because otherwise you might kill somebody. The reality is the majority of foodborne illnesses, first off, aren't going to kill you. Might make you wish you were dead, because some of them are beyond like caveat. They won't kill you unless you are particularly compromised. You know, either immune system or you're just got a poor constitution or something like that. You know, then okay, yes. But I mean, for the vast majority of us, it is incredibly unlikely that most foodborne illnesses will kill you. They'll make you sick. You're not going to be having a fun several days. Now, I'm not saying that it's not a big deal. Go out and get yourself a little salmonella. You know, don't misunderstand me. I'm just saying that a lot of these things are not as dangerous as they want you to believe they are. Of course, that's largely true of just about anything. But, okay, well, we've got a few more cucumbers here. So I gotta go grab, looks like one more jar here. So I'm gonna go grab that, and then we'll carry on with our pickle making process. Okay, back, and I already went ahead and filled the last jar. As I said earlier, one of the things you need bread and butter pickles is onion. So I've taken a fairly large onion, sliced it in half, removed the skin. We're gonna just run it on our mandolin. You can leave the root on, because then you're getting rid of that anyway, but so it gives you something to hold on to. We're just going to go ahead and do the whole thing. And I've got another one just in case I need it, but there we go. So we've got some nice sliced pieces of onion. Set that over here. And then we're just going to go through and put just a little bit into each jar, because this is just a flavoring component, so you don't necessarily need a ton into each one. Now, if you wanted to make like some sweet pickled onions now, which you certainly could, then obviously you'd want a lot more. But because, well, it'd be the whole thing. But for this, the onion is just to give a little flavor to the pickles. So that's all it is, just a little bit, a few pieces. I think I might need the second onion that I got, but that's okay too. Well, maybe not. And you kind of want to pack that down a little bit too. It's less of a big deal if the onion floats, but you still don't really want it to, because if there are any mold spores that survive the canning process, which can happen, it's rare, but it can happen, then anything that's poking above the solution can start to spoil, and if it starts to spoil, then it can start giving off flavors to the rest of your pickles, and now you've got a ruined jar of pickles. So, you do want that all to sink too, but honestly, it's not that huge of a deal if it doesn't. Okay? Now, what we're going to go ahead and do is, as I get my cut-resistant glove off, we're going to go ahead and get our brine started while we finish up with the jars of pickles. Now, one of the things I have to do, this is just a thing that I do, so this old exhaust system, notice how it's not very high above the much smaller pot? Now, it kind of gets in the way, so when I'm doing anything with my large pots, I have to pull my oven out so that thing's not in the way. Not a necessary step unless you live in my house, which no one but me does. So what I do when I'm making any of my basic pickles, I don't necessarily have a recipe, right? I just know what I'm looking for. So what I need is about 1 cup of brine per pint jar, right? 2 cups per quart jar, about 3/4 of a cup per half pint jar, which is the jelly jars like we did earlier. Well, earlier, this is a different video. The carrot cake jam, I've been doing it on the same day. There it is, cooling right now. Okay, so I need about 1 cup of brine per jar. I have 25 jars, right? There's 24, needed 1 extra, 25. Means I need 25 cups, okay? So you run through the conversions. 25 cups is about 12 pints. 12 pints is about 6 quarts. I have 1 gallon of vinegar there. So that's 4 quarts. And we're going to go ahead and add this. And there's a trick for you if you didn't know it with large bottles, or any bottle. Just pouring it all out. Give it a couple spins so it vortexes. And then the air can go up through the middle of the vortex while the liquid all comes out the side. Or the edge, however you want to phrase it. Nope, I didn't get that one done. There we go. Drains much smoother and nicer that way. So, there is 4 quarts. Then we're going to add about 1.5 quarts of water. Quart and a half. So it's about a 4-to-1 ratio that I like to do vinegar to water for any pickle that I actually water down. Because I like to go that kind of extra mile on acidity, and that's kind of my compromise to safety of the product. So I've got about 1 quart in there. And we'll put that in. Now, those of you who passed first grade math will realize that that is not 6 quarts. Like I just said, I need actually split more than 6 quarts. Well, and that's because sugar has volume too. So, as these are a pretty sweet pickle, they need a pretty considerable amount of vinegar. Or, not vinegar. They need that too, but a pretty considerable amount of sugar. So, I've got a 2-cup scoop here. I've got currently 10 pints in there. So what I'm going to do, and 5 quarts approximately. So what I'm going to do is we're going to start with 5 cups of sugar. There's 2, there's 4, and there's about 1/2 scoop for 5. Okay. And then I'm going to go get my spoon here. because I could never remember my spoon before I start doing this. Okay, so now that we have our spoon, I'm going to also add half a cup of salt. Okay. Now we're going to stir this all up real quick. Get our sugar and our salt to dissolve. This will take a couple minutes, possibly. And quite a lot of stirring. And then what we're going to do, once it's dissolved, we're going to taste it. It's kind of a key principle in any cooking. You should know what the things you're trying to make taste like. Which does make it a little difficult if it's something you don't like. And if you're making sweet pickles for your family, but you personally don't like sweet pickles, it does make it a little annoying. But you should still know what it tastes like, so you know what you're looking for. Now, normally, I'd probably use a separate spoon than the one I'm stirring with, but given that this is 4 parts vinegar to 1 part water, and I'm going to bring it up to a boil at some point, I'm not too worried about contaminating it with my germs. It's pretty good. I think it needs to be just a little more sweet. I think we're pretty close though. It's been a while since I made bread and butter pickles, so I couldn't quite remember what the ratio of sugar to everything is. So I think we're going to go 1 more cup of sugar, and I think that's going to be good. Because it was already pretty close to where I wanted it to be. And when you're stirring things like this, especially when the heat's on, but it is, even though the heat isn't on right this moment, not just circles, because you want to make sure you're getting the whole bottom of the pan so nothing's burning. Okay. That mostly looks like the sugar's dissolved. And I recommend tasting this when you're making it before you get it hot, because like you could heat this up and it'd dissolve better, but it's going to change the way it tastes. Plus also the vinegar fumes straight into the nose while it's hot can be a little disconcerting. So let's see what we've got now. Yep, there we go. That's what we're looking for. Okay, so then we're going to go ahead and turn that on high. Then we're going to come over here and grab a measuring spoon. There we go. Good old 1/4 teaspoon. Oh, I need 1 more measuring spoon actually, because there's one other thing I forgot in there. Good old tablespoon. So, if you didn't already know, bread and butter pickles usually have a little bit of a yellow color to them. That comes from that right there, turmeric. Or if you're massive producers, maybe a yellow number 5 or something. But when you're a home producer, you use turmeric. It's better for you anyway. So we're going to just throw a tablespoon and a little in. We're going to give that a good stir. It's not going to completely dissolve. Turmeric's a little hydrophobic in that regard. But it will, as it heats and such too, it'll dissolve better. So there. Then we've got our nice yellowy pickle brine. Okay. And we'll let that do its thing. Okay, then we're going to come over here. One last component into our pickle jars. That is, at least the way I do it, that is just yellow mustard seed. So I come through and do 1/4 teaspoon yellow mustard seed into every jar. Now you want to change your flavor up a little bit. Some of the other things you could add would be coriander seed, juniper berry, black pepper, whole peppercorns, black peppercorns. You could even do allspice if you wanted to. Now, pretty much the greatest thing with all the pickling spices is you can play around with them to your heart's content. And you're going to have more or less the same pickle, but the flavor is going to be just a little bit different if you use different pickling spices. Same as if you use different amounts of pickling spices in a thing. So if you wanted to double up the amount of mustard seed in there, that's going to change how it tastes just a little bit. So, and that's that. Now all we got to do is wait for our brine to come to a boil and fill our jars, do all that. So we'll wait for that to come up to a boil and carry on from there. Okay, here we go. As mentioned, the turmeric did dissolve as it heats up, which is pretty normal. Mostly, you can see a little bit of it kind of floating on top still. We're almost where we need to be. Alright. There it is. There's the beginnings of the boil. And that's usually good enough for me, because I just want to make sure that it's come to a proper boil. So we'll turn that off. As usual, set it in the sink. Turn our canning pot on kind of medium, so it can be getting ready. And then the standard procedure. Fill each jar till everything's covered. And then go on to the next one. If you have anything poking up like you do right there, you just carefully poke it back into the solution. Now with this particular style jar, I know that in my canner, I can get 8 jars per layer. So what we're going to do is just fill the first 16 and get them in. And then we'll come back and get the rest of them. Then the remaining 9 will go in on the second batch. Nice and gentle, you don't need to do it super quick or anything. Now you're trying not to spill. One of the things that annoys me the most when I'm making pickles is when I misjudge exactly how much brine I'm really gonna need. Sometimes things pack in a little bit tighter than others, and so if something packs in a little bit more loose than I was expecting it to, then the liquid will fill in the rest of that physical space. And if it's packed more loosely than I was anticipating, then I don't have enough brine. And that annoys me quite a bit when I have to make more brine, like in the middle of making pickles, because I didn't have enough. So, all the more reason to be careful so you're not spilling a bunch of it. But also, because this has got turmeric in it, you don't want to spill because you can stain your counters. And I have absolutely spilled some, which means I'm going to have yellow spots on my counters for the next week. Probably. Oh well, that's life. So just like that, right, you want everything, you don't want it necessarily too loose if you can avoid it, but you also don't want it to jam your jars in there. So everything should be secure, but not crammed in. If you have to do more than just wiggle a jar a tiny bit to get it in, then you're trying to put too many in. Because you want the heat, whether it's from the steam of the pressure canner or the boiling water of a hot water bath. And this one needs a little bit more brine in it. But you want the heat to be able to contact all the sides of the jar so that it can transfer into the jar and do what it needs to do for food safety reasons. Yeah, real quick, you can kind of see what I'm talking about with the staining on the counter. It hasn't been sitting that long. It's faded, but it's still definitely yellow. And probably will be for a little while. It's annoying, but that's just one of the things you deal with when you're making this pickle or other things that use turmeric. Okay. There we are. This will be the first batch, first round of them all in. So like most of my things that I do, because they can also safely be done in a water bath canner, we've got a 5-pound pressure weight on, and so I'll wait for this to come up to the pressure we need, turn the heat back, and then we'll set it for 7 minutes to process. So I will see you after the processing is all done again. So we'll be back in just a minute. Alrighty. First batch of pickles is all done. There we are. So, just like anything else, this part of the process isn't really any different no matter what you're doing. You want to just gently move the jars to some thick cloth. Towels work great. You want to make sure the towels are natural fibers, cotton, things like that though, because as hot as the jars can be, synthetic fibers can melt, and you don't want bits of melted towel sticking to whatever it is you just spent a couple of hours making. So, you just remove them to your towel. When you can get them out of the dang thing. There we go. And that is all there is to it. So there we go. Bread and butter pickles. And so thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you made the recipe and what you think of it. And see you in the next one.